Hey everyone, Michelle Seidling here with another episode of Food Experience Unplugged. Today we'll explore learning from adversity and creating joy in your life. Here to help us do that is Susan Lorenzo, a certified transformational life coach, speaker, and author of the book Pulling the Gems from Adversity. This podcast is available on multiple platforms, including YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and others. Please be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform to be informed as new episodes become available. Also, be sure to rate and review the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Be sure to check out our website also at foodexperienceunplugged.com for some resources as you begin your health journey. Susan Lorenzo, welcome to Food Experience Unplugged.
Thank you, Michelle. It is awesome to be here, and I'm just a big fan of your show. Thanks so much for inviting me to be here with you today.
Well, it is wonderful to have you here, Susan, and trying to overcome adversity. And you've written a new book or soon to be coming out, Pulling the Gems from Adversity. I love the title, and we'll delve into that momentarily to talk about overcoming adversity and bringing joy to your life and how that helps health and well-being.
Yes, it is. It's something I've lived and something I coach my clients on who are coming out of life-altering adversity as a life coach. It's just my passion to let other people know, not only based on my own experience, but based on my training, that there's a way while you're in it, and as you find that there are these phases coming out of it, and one builds you to the next level of your, I'll say, personal growth, your personal experience of yourself and your potential.
Sure, absolutely. Now, before we dive into all of those gems from adversity, will you take a moment to introduce yourself and tell us what brought you to this point in your life and career and why this book?
My pleasure. I'd have to take your listeners back to a time when I was a young mom, and I was diagnosed with invasive breast cancer,
Mhm.
and I went through operations and all the things you hear about cancer treatment, chemo, radiation. And as I was ending treatment, I got the great news that I was cancer free. And I went on to want to make everything in my life great. I get to live kind of a feeling. And from there, I wanted to work on my marriage. And I approached my mate at the time and said, let's work on this. Like, I have my whole life ahead of me. I want it to be great. And he nodded his head. And then he said, I think I need to live alone. And it was like, And I remember I went up to the bathroom that night and I just yelled up to God, do you think I could just have a year off? I was like, no way was that happening. And yet, um, it's a phrase I use, and I use it in the book as well, is I thought the universe was kicking my butt, but it was actually cleaning my house. It set me on a stage to rebuild in a way that I never would have done. I would have just settled for my life the way it was. But since I had this clean slate, and this is something I share as a life coach, it's something I write about in my book, and it's something I speak about. I've also done radio before as well, and it is something that I can't help but not talk about and write about. And it's one of those things where once somebody sees the possibilities and that they too can take whatever has happened, no matter what's happened, and there's some pretty awful things that have happened to people, what is inside of us is greater than any circumstance around us. That we can't beat our heart one time. We can't make our heart beat. Something is making our heart beat. Something is, even when we're not consciously taking a breath, we're still breathing. There's life in there that's beyond anything you and I can control. And that is the source of everything that leads us out of darkness and into the next greatest version of ourselves.
Mm, I love it. So that was kind of the spark essentially that pulled you through that time and through doing coaching and then now your book. So
Yes.
what prompted you to write the book?
I've always wanted to write a book. I actually wanted to write a book coming right out of cancer that said, I can't believe this all happened to me. Because one thing after another, my life just kept going on to the next level. Like after my husband left, I actually met someone and fell in love again. It didn't last forever, but it showed me, even after all these awful surgeries where I didn't feel great about my body, I'd gone through a mastectomy. I used to kid that my torso looked like a road map, like a Michelin road map. And so great things started happening because I started believing they could. And then the universe kept showing me things. So this book was just something where I knew, not only from clients, but watching people stay in their story, that this happened to me story, that this is why I'm like this story. And just basically saying this is as good as it gets. I guess I drew the short straw. And I'll just have to muddle through with whatever I got. This happened to me and now I'll never be the same.
Mm.
And so inviting the reader, inviting my clients to say that's not true. And what if it, if it's not true, what would my life look like? What would I love for my life? What could I imagine for myself? It may not look anything like the life that you had, that I had before something awful happened to us. That we have a chance now to say, okay, this just blew up. I've got to clear away the debris. I've got to start looking at what my part is in this story I got sucked into, because we all have a part in these plays. And then that's where the transformation starts. For me, it was about really, really low self esteem and not believing I was worthy of anything more than what I got. I really believed I drew the short straw. and and it was like, well, this is as good as it gets, Susan. You did the best you could. You made your bed, you have to lie in it. And then the whole thing, like I said, just blew up. And I really believe that we can be led away with some kind of dark adversity out of a very problem situation. That can often be the case, whether someone's in a difficult marriage, going through bankruptcy. There's habits and there's things, there's all kinds of energies running through this, and many of those energies are within us and within our thinking. So
Mm.
learning our part in it is huge. And then we get to choose again what's going to serve us going forward. Once we understand, like for me, I didn't know that I was in a codependent relationship, that I'd grown up with a parent with depression. So by the time I was wanting to get married and have a family, I just kind of fit myself in like a jigsaw puzzle. Oh, I know how to do this. I fit right in here. And, there's it's a tough road. It's like walking on eggshells with this type of a relationship and trying to be the person who, quote unquote, holds it all together. So once I realized that wasn't I didn't have to do that anymore. I didn't have to
Mm.
pick a relationship like that anymore. And when I saw myself headed for one, I could say, "Oh, see what you did there." And yes, that is a great place to get counseling and therapy. That's I am a life coach, but there are certain things that are definitely they definitely benefit from seeing a licensed therapist that can take you through these patterns and places that are need more emotional healing, need more work done in a different level than rebuilding a life and getting rid of paradigms. That's really where I come in.
Excellent. I love that. I love that you're drawing from your own experiences, but likely your clients see those same struggles. Are those typical in what you're seeing with regard to adversities?
Yes, I think the main struggle that I see is even believing it's possible to rebuild and think there are self-esteem issues, there are level of expectation issues. We can't outperform our self-esteem. We can't go beyond our level of expectations for our life, but we can raise them. And
Mm.
that's where it's really great to work with people and watch the light come on in their eyes, even though we're like mostly on the phone when we work with each other. But you can feel that aha coming through the lines, and it is wonderful. And when I see a client reach those goals, reach that next level of their lives, I must be like the proud mother hen. I don't know. I just have all of a sudden feel like you just are the biggest cheerleader for someone when you watch where they start and you see those lights come on and taking brave action. And a lot of this stuff, Michelle, is scary for the first time that you're doing something you've never done before. And what will so and so think? What will, you're looking outside of yourself sometimes for approval and not in here. And that was me before. I would look outside to see what was acceptable, who was I supposed to be, and that goes back into the idea of being a pleaser, or even in a former codependent kind of thing where I have to like filter all my responses through a level of people that I had to jump through hoops for in my own perception. But
Mhm.
once we take ourselves on as our own authority, as the ruler of our lives, at the end of my book, I talk about pulling the gems from the muck in the mud and putting them in your crown and becoming the ruler of your life. There is something about being the ruler of your life and not having to answer. It doesn't mean we don't have responsibilities. Yes, we have jobs. Yes, we probably have some household affairs to take care of. But there's that next level of choosing what is valuable to us and where are we going to put it in our lives. How are we going to get to what we are saying is valuable and makes us feel expansive rather than contractive. That level of resigning where we are just saying, oh well, that's the way it goes. Because when we start choosing and making things happen, sometimes it feels so, I'm going to say, like magic. Because when we align our thoughts, our beliefs with inspired action, I believe the universe sweeps in and says, it's about time. Now let's get going. And I'm going to throw some things at you that are going to take you on your way. I'm going to put someone in your path that's going to help you. I'm going to give you this great job, whatever it is. You're going to meet someone, you're going to read something. Sometimes it's as wild as watching the words on the side of a truck drive by with just the inspiration you need. It's just when we take this on, when we start to see the magic of life and not just living, if we stay in that story, we don't get to see that truck going by with the magic words on it. That was just the inspiration we needed. We miss seeing that because we're on a different level, we can't see that person. That person may have gone by and we didn't even know. But that's the good news also, Michelle. That's not your only chance. And that's not my only chance. There's always that next level. And the universe, I always say the universe, but whatever you want to call it, the magic of life, God, um, it never leaves. It's always at the ready saying, yeah, she's getting it. Let's take her to the next level. And can I say, that's also what adversity looks like.
Mhm.
There was a wonderful meme, Michelle, and it was this big hand whacking somebody off a cliff, and it said God. And then as the guy's falling off the cliff, there's a big hand catching him, and it says also God.
Mhm.
And I thought about that with dark experiences, and certainly mine, where here I was yelling at God, "Come on, give me a year off." And then the next thing I know, I'm like, "Oh, I get it. You were cleaning my house." So we don't know that at the time, though. We
Mm.
don't. At the
No.
time, you think, "Oh, this is really bad. This is awful." Um, and there's a line I love from an old book called Think and Grow Rich by Dr. Napoleon Hill, where he says, "In every adversity is a seed of good." And I
Mm.
believe that seed is pure potential. It's never leaving us. That seed, whether we do something with it or not, will not leave. It's not going to go, oh, you didn't do something in 3 years, so now the seed's gone. It's ready to be activated whenever we're ready.
Mm.
And that's when I love to catch my clients. When that seed is just starting to poke out and they're saying, yeah, I got to do this. I can't go on staying where I am. It just feels too uncomfortable. I've got to find out.
Absolutely. I love that. I love just reflecting. It's a lot of it is about reflecting on your own experiences and looking back. In your book, you mention a lot about that looking backward. And now why? You gave some examples of yourself looking. I mean, why is it helpful to look backward in that trying to overcome that adversity?
Very good question. I know, and it seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? You just want to get the heck away from whatever happened to you, and uh, and just get on with your life. And I do recommend when you're first coming out of an adversity to take some time for yourself to really heal. But let things bubble up for you. Let insights and wisdom bubble up. I didn't come out of cancer saying, wow, I really had low self-esteem, and now I've got to work on that. And now, oh, look, I'm a codependent. You know, these are things that came from considering. And that can look like journaling. It can just come like an epiphany sometimes that you're just taking a walk, drinking a cup of coffee, and things start bubbling up. I found, for me, a lot of journaling helped in reviewing what happened. It's a great place to unload hurt and disappointment and exhaustion, and it's a great place to connect in the divine. And whether it's in prayer or meditation, in those moments we get clarity. So as we're coming out, we want to take care of ourselves. We're pouring on the compassion, we're pouring on the love, and we're letting people help us. We're not going to be, what is that? No man is an island. We
Mm.
need people. We and letting whatever grace comes from the people who care about you and want to do for you. It allows, and I'm big about allowing, especially when you're in an adversity, not resisting. But then there's this other kind of allowing in the healing process. And from there is when we get some clarity. We need a little bit of space. We're not going to come right out of an adversity and what is the phrase? Light dawns on Marblehead, where it's just. but but we do get it, and we can get it, and it's going to have to do with openness. If you're just deciding you already know what you know, it's going to be really hard to consider other things, especially when you might need to consider that you weren't so skillful in certain times. And it may seem like self criticism rather than just analysis, so that you can change things in a way that's going to serve you going forward. You're going to learn that it's not about a reaction, a patterned reaction, but that you can choose a new response in a similar situation or in another adversity, so that you're going to be really proud of yourself. You're going to feel a new form of integrity when you notice that your skills are building based on what you've learned. So that's why we look back. It's for the gold. It's, what is it? There's gold in them hills. So we're leaving the muck and the mud behind. But we want that stuff. We want that good stuff that's going to build. And what happens when we take that with us? We serve others who are going through dark times. They see what's possible if they know what we've been through. And if not, we can say, hey, pal, I've been there, and I can tell you it's going to be okay. Don't worry about what it looks like now. And yeah, that's what I'd want your listeners to know. If they're going through a tough time right now, it's not going to last forever. And it's just the best time to hold firm, connect with the divine in any way you feel that. Like I said, it could just be a simple thing as going back to your breath, not resisting, and knowing this, whatever you're going through, it does not last forever. There's a new stage. Just like good times don't last, the bad times don't last. It's just the flow of life.
Wow, I love that. I just being positive and kind of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
now now through this process in your book, you described 5 stages that you go through to, I guess, getting from point A down to the light at the end of the tunnel. Could you talk about that a little bit?
I'd be happy to. Yeah, I start with I take the reader right into when you're in an adversity. And I just talked a little bit about that. In that first section, I call it holding firm in a storm. So, giving the tools and mindsets when you're in the middle of something that is going to help sustain you. You can't deny the dark, and you don't have to start thinking about your new life yet. Just like it's going back to the idea of remembering that there is a seed of good in every adversity. Just holding on to that fact. I don't know what it looks like right now, but I can at least acknowledge that. Okay, I don't know what this looks like right now, what the seed of good is, but okay, I'm going to hang in there for that seed of good. But in the meantime, really caring for ourselves and sustaining ourselves. The second one is called a kind glance backwards. I really wanted to call it what the HE double toothpicks just happened. And I thought, okay, I probably can't call it that. But That's what you and I were just talking about, is the idea of grabbing the gold in that kind glance backwards to say, wow, what can I take with me from this experience that's going to bring me greater wisdom and insights as I move to rebuild my life? So that's the second section. The third section is just called Creating Life Anew. And in that section, I take the reader into what it's like to create a blueprint of a dream for yourself on a whole new platform. What does it look like to write a vision statement, to put together, even if it's a vision board, starting to pull and follow the little breadcrumbs of the things that light them up for their lives. Maybe it's completely new work, a new job. They want to live in Europe. I don't know what it looks like for you guys, but that's where it started for me too. Was just starting with a little vision board. So in that, we take them through the process of building a dream, building a vision, and then the fourth section is called "Not Everything Can Come with You." There are things in our lives, and you and I talked a little bit about that in the earlier part about low self-esteem, low expectations. I'll add resentment or not being able to forgive. These things hold us back, comparing ourselves to other people. So I go through in this section a list of things that really, it makes it very difficult to move forward in our lives. They're just like dragging chains behind us. And even though we say we want to move forward, it's a form of paradigm that can keep us stuck. So with awareness, we carve those away and there's a freer feeling. And then my fifth section, the final section, is called Advance Boldly. If you've gotten so far as to follow me through these four sections and start working on taking inspired action and holding certain mindsets that you know are going to serve you, especially because not everything goes our way. Even as we go on and we build a vision, things swoop in and try to derail us. That's life. Life kicks up sand in our face. And so we've got to clear the sand away and wipe off our face and try again sometimes. So, advancing boldly is about the idea that, the road to success is always under construction. It's always something where we're going to be building and taking new chances. And how are we staying resilient? So that's what the final section is about, is just up leveling from there, from everything we've talked about. Okay, now let's really go into full resilience mode and um, really go for it. We only get this one life. Even if you believe in reincarnation, right? You only get to be Michelle once, and I only get to be Susan once. So let's give these girls a great ride.
Wow, I love that whole transition, not only physically, but with your mindset, with removing baggage, just really, really focusing on the future. So again, and that kind of beckons the question, are we ever done with adversity? Is this kind of a one-time process?
Yeah, it's funny. I write about this in the book, in the section on resilience, on the chapter on resilience, where I thought, hey, man, I am out of here. I'm out with cancer. I've got a new man in my life. Life is looking really good. And then I get pneumonia. And I was laid out for 2 weeks, and that was like a year later, and then the month after that, a tree just about fell on my house and went right into my front door, and I was like, "Hey, I already gave at the office. What's all this stuff going on?" You know? And and so that was my reminder, no, we're never really done with, that. But in terms of the particular adversity, if we're looking at just, yes, do I still look back on cancer and divorce, sometimes I still get new little aha moments from that. And I love that. I think, wow, you can just keep wringing this stuff out to get, but for the good stuff, not to just go back and feel how awful I felt like sitting in a chair with some chemotherapy going into my arm. I barely, I don't think I ever think about stuff like that. But when I come up with um, little aha moments, and I think the one that really, I thought that cancer and divorce was like the 1-2 punch, right, of adversity. And what I now see is that the cancer and getting to the point where I'm told I'm cancer free actually led that marriage out of there because I was raising my level of happiness and excitement about my life that it would have been almost impossible to maintain a marriage that focused on this lower level, and I'm now vibrating up here.
Mm.
we can only have a life that matches our vibration. I know that's very quantum, but it's the truth. And so when we're vibrating, I'll say, with emotions, whatever those lower emotions are, our life is going to match that. Thinking and feelings. Our life, whatever the stage in your life looks like right now, you want to check in with it, what you're thinking and feeling. And so here I am. I'm now at a higher place of excitement for my life, and my marriage isn't matching that. So it either had to come up and match where I was now, or it gets taken out from it got taken away from me because I was willing to work on that. But it was more like, no, man, I can't. That's not for me. And it's funny, Michelle,
Mhm.
because as the marriage was ending, my ex-husband, this ex-husband said, uh, "You're going to be okay. Everybody keeps telling me how wonderful you are." Oh gosh, it was
Oh.
such an and at the time, that didn't sound like a really wonderful thing to say to me, but then I was like, "Wow, that at least people thought I was wonderful, I guess."
Yes. So in a sense, it's going through that adversity process actually prepares you for the next adversity to come down the line.
Exactly. There was, I was gonna lose a job. I knew I was being called into a conference room to meet with one of the head of HR and my boss at the time, and I felt, awful, and I'm walking down the hall, and I said to myself, "Okay, Susan, you've been through cancer and divorce. How much worse could it be? And you've survived all of those." And so by the time I made it to the conference room, I had on the face of like, "Welcome, everyone." I actually took command of who I was going to be in that moment based on knowing what I came through before. And that's what I would advise you all to remember too. We've all, if you've lived long enough, you've been through something. And taking that and using that as fuel, as rocket fuel if you need it, to get through something that life keeps circling back to teach us something, not to punish us. And so when we can remember that our track record is pretty darn good for coming through things. If you are listening to us now, good job. Yeah. So, yeah, it teaches us and it shows us what's possible and what we can get through.
Absolutely. And this last year, going into the next year, there's, many people have battled through different adversities. Now, in your book and in your coaching and other things, what are some things that we can do to support ourselves? How do you talk about different things that you can do to support no matter what the adversity you're going through?
Yes, yes. And I'm going to go back to one of the biggest things, which is remembering that even though sometimes we may feel alone, we're never alone, alone, alone. If you can hold on to the idea that you're not breathing yourself, you're not making your heart beat, there is life inside of you. And holding on, if you have a spiritual practice, I have to say that really did it for me. Having some sense that I could call out and call out for help, call out for courage, call out for strength, call out for somebody to pretend to be hugging me while I'm crying if I was alone, because it takes that. It takes that. It takes reaching out. I know if we're talking about our global adversity right now, then we all need each other. And some people are living alone, but you don't have to completely be alone. And it takes some real creativity. I know I'm doing a lot of Zoom right now with a lot of my friends and family. The other thing I would say is the breathing. When we're in crisis, our breath gets really shallow, so coming back to full breaths, getting outside, getting with nature, if you can, that is so healing. I'm so blessed. I live near some woods, and I'll just go walking in the woods and feeling the crunch of the leaves under me and taking deep breaths. Getting near the ocean. I'm in Rhode Island, so if I can get to the ocean, reading something beautiful. I love poetry by Mary Oliver. I love just anything that's a beautiful word. I also play the piano. I love music. There are ways we can raise our vibration. And I even recommend, as you see yourself sinking, like you know your mood is going. Now, if it's one that just slams you down, I understand that, then that can happen. But as you feel something pulling you down, we and earlier moments where we're a little more, I'll say, in a higher vibe, can create a menu of things we know, like music, like potentially dancing, like going out in nature, like hugging our dog, like taking a warm bath or a hot shower, that change our moods. They lift us up. We may not make it to full joy, but we say, okay, whew, I got a hold of myself, you know? So those are a few things that I say are key in my life and things that I'd recommend also.
Okay, I love that. I love just, working your way up to joy.
Mm.
So, do you feel like these things help to build joy, or what helps build
Yeah.
joy, do you think?
Yeah. I think connection to ourselves and what we love build joy. And yours may be different than mine, but when we honor that, and whether it's artwork, um, singing is huge for me. I love to sing. Doesn't mean people want to hear me sing, but I love it. And so, yes, there is ways to get to joy. Laughing is huge. If you know you have a favorite movie, a favorite comedian, those are great ways to hear yourself laugh, to laugh with a friend over a memory. There are so many ways that we can get into a place that's going to lift us up. And what happens then? What's your vibration like? It's great. And you are attracting, we're always a magnet to a circumstance. So when we can keep our vibration high, we're attracting greater health and greater stability and greater potential and experience.
I love that. I love just that it's kind of like the conduit that as
Yes,
you're
well said.
Mhm. That you're creating more joy so that you're creating better health and better surroundings essentially for yourself and for your family members or others who maybe you may interact with.
That's right. That's right. And then you can see, I mean, if you're out there at all, and most of us at least still have to go to the grocery store, although some of us get delivery, is I've noticed, I want to say people are actually kinder these days. You know, there's a lot of frustration. Maybe you're in the car and you still see some, I live in Rhode Island, some rude drivers sometimes, but
Mm.
um, I mainly see people being super kind on the road, in the stores, walking about, even if they're being, with careful and everything with masks or whatever, their eyes are still smiling. And it doesn't mean everybody's eyes are still smiling, but I see the effort being made. And it really, talk about lifting me up. I just think that gives so much hope to the circumstances that we're finding ourselves in right now.
Absolutely. Now, for those kind of just getting started, what are some tips to get started on this road, going through 5 stages or whatever the path may be?
I think it's first accepting that where you are is not sustainable in a joyful way. That when you're in a dark place, um, you're not, how can I say that? When you're in a dark place, it was never the intention of your spirit, of your soul to stay there. There is a pressing against us that it shows up as longing and discontent. Those are two very spiritual signals that we all have. And often we can push down the longing. And yet discontent never goes away, it only gets louder. And so when we can start by putting a voice to that, putting words to what that looks like, getting out a journal, getting out a piece of paper, and maybe you can't write down your longings, but I bet you can write down what you don't like and what you're done with, what you love to be done with. I think you've got fuel for the fire right in that exercise, right there. I've also talked about vision boards because sometimes just seeing a picture or a set of words can inspire us. Seeing what other people are doing and saying, wow, I'd love to do that. And then making sure you're asking, why not me? Why not me? We're all made of the same stardust, you know? So let's let's say that. Why not me? And where do I start? And maybe it's just with a really rough idea of what my life would look like if everything was guaranteed and there were no we love to put obstacles in front of ourselves. We love to put the word because in front of it, in front of why we can't do things. But what if we just took one step at a time? I think one of the biggest problems is we want to know how it's all going to happen. How is this all going to happen? How could this possibly work? And all we're given in any pathway is just the next few steps. And once we take them, more are given. I'd say, obviously, I encourage people to reach out. Reach out if it's not if reach out to me, but reach out to someone that's going to be having support is huge, because what happens when something goes wrong, we go, "Oh, I guess it wasn't meant to be." But if you have a life coach at your side, they're going to say, "No, that's not how it works. You just tripped on a rock. Let's get back up and keep you going and holding that vision." Because what you have is a partner in believing then. You have somebody who sees even beyond, um, and you have your greatest partner in believing and cheerleader that's going to remind you. And I love taking that word apart, re-mind you, to put it back in your mind when you may have knocked it out. There's a wonderful phrase that my mother had hanging in our little bathroom in Racine, Wisconsin, and it said, "A friend is someone who knows your song and sings it to you when you forget it." And that's what it's like to hold someone's dream, and have the privilege of someone sharing something so precious that they may not have even told anyone in their own family. And that's what it's like when it's like their song. They're handing you their song, and you get to sing it back to them when they forget it. Because that's going to happen sometimes. It happens to all of us. And that's why it's great to have support system with other people. If you have other friends that are going for things, you want to have those as your friends and cheer each other on. Having a support system of other people who know what's possible in a community or in a coach.
I love that. I love how even if you yourself don't quite have that vision yet, there's someone there, an accountability person, a friend who believes in you and who has that vision and helps you to see that vision essentially.
Yes. Yeah, to remind. Exactly.
Wow. That's incredible and powerful to really help you propel past whatever adversity you're going through, but also help you prepare for the next one, be hopefully stronger as a result.
Yeah. It's absolutely possible, and it's worth it.
Definitely worth it. Well, Susan, how can people get in contact with you?
It's quite easy. You can head over to my website, susandlorenzo.com, and I'll just spell it out. It's SUSANDELORENZO.com, and Susan at susandlorenzo.com for email. And I would invite your listeners to also head over to my Facebook page, Facebook.com/Dream Coach Susan. And you can find me there. I do little 5-minute videos of little snippets of overcoming adversity that might be helpful to folks.
Okay, wow, that does sound helpful. We will include all of that information in the show notes. And as we wrap up, any last words of advice, or what would be your top recommendation going forward for somebody?
What you see around you are yesterday's thoughts. We can create new thoughts right here and now. It takes practice. Don't be hard on yourself if you think, "Oh my God, I just thought a terrible thought. There goes tomorrow." That's not how it works. But what I want to point out is taking this on, noticing your thinking. There, Emerson said, "Stand guard at the portal of your mind." What are you letting in? What are you letting run in the background like music you listen to walking through the supermarket and you're like, "Whoa, I hate that song." We can change that. It takes practice, but it's possible. And again, it makes for better tomorrows.
Absolutely. I love that, Susan. That is wonderful. Very helpful to pull the gems from adversity and move forward in your life. Uh, Susan, thank you so much. This has
Thank
been a
you.
pleasure and so many resources, so much encouragement from overcoming whatever adversity you may be going through and knowing that there's joy at the end there.
Thank you, Michelle. It's been such a great pleasure to speak with you. And I just wish everyone who's listening all the very best.